And then making sure that we're really blurring the lines between indoor and outdoor spaces. Somewhere there's typically beautiful views, figuring out how to blur the lines between indoor and outdoor programming so it seems really seamless. It really is an art. Being able to coordinate with the other consultants is something that is integral to ensuring that we have a successful project and end result.
Hello and welcome to the Regenerative Design Podcast. I'm your host, Mathieu Mehuis, and in this show, I interview the leading authorities in the world of regenerative practices, people who do good and do well. Are you a person that cares about your environment and our planet? Are you a person that wants to leave the planet to our children to be something that we can be truly proud of? Something to enjoy for many generations to come? But are you also a person that believes we can do all of this and do good in business? Well, I have really good news for you. You're here listening to the podcast that is all about making our planet a better place and making your business more successful. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Regenerative Design Podcast, where we are interviewing leading authorities in the world, that people that are doing good for our planet, for our environment, and are also doing great in business. So today we have another special guest. Her name is Paige Byrd. She's the co-president of Teal & Team, which is an integrated architectural firm that is mostly focusing on bigger scale projects in the US. So Paige, thank you very much for coming on. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Mathieu. I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me on.
Yes, it's great. So first of all, I would like to hear your backstory. So how did you get into architecture and how did you get into the position where you are today?
Yeah, it's a long story, but it's a good one. So I am the daughter of a teacher and a lumber broker, and grew up in a small town where architecture and interior design wasn't something that was of great value. But it was interesting because my dad, with his job, and my parents, they were always, when they went somewhere, if they could, they took my sister and I with them. And from an early age, they would laugh anytime we went somewhere. I wanted to explore. If we were in a hotel or a restaurant, I wanted to go see the bathrooms and see, what they looked like. I wanted to see everything. And at the time, didn't realize what that was, but it was a passion and curiosity and love for the built environment. And, through the course of time, I actually started, whenever I started college, I was majoring in elementary education. Like I said, my mom was a teacher, and if I wasn't, trying to make things look nice, I was playing school upstairs in my room. But when I started my in-class observations, it didn't feel right. And one day, I was, I guess, a sophomore, and was like, I'm just going to go tour the interior design building. I'm going to go see what this is about, because it just kind of was tugging at me. So I went, and I just probably spent 2 hours in the hallway looking at all the projects that were on the walls and taking it in. And that day I called my parents and I told them, I know you're not going to like this, but I'm changing my major and I'm doing it this week. And I'm going to meet with a new advisor and see what I need to do to make that happen.
Wow.
So that to them, they were very supportive. It put me in school for an extra 2 years because that program is a 4-year program. But they were understanding and really supportive of my desire to do that. So
Amazing.
I ended up changing to interior design as a major, and just really, threw myself into it and immersed myself. And between my junior and senior year, I was privileged to move to Dallas for the summer. And I interned at one of the leading hospitality firms, and they work all over the world, and, did luxury hotels and resorts. And I just fell in love. I mean, I really did fall in love with what we're able to do, the creativity behind it, but also the opportunity to make something and to create something with a team of people that impacts people's lives for the better. So I started out as a junior designer, my first job, and was just really thrown into it. I tell young designers, you don't really know anything until your first day at work
Oh
on
yeah,
your first job, and
I
man,
mean, I can
experience
totally see that.
that.
I went to the university. We learned a bunch of things that are very valuable, but then you think you know a lot, and then you start your first week. It's like, what?
I
I
don't
have
know
no clue
anything.
what all of this is.
Yes. And so I started and I was traveling a lot in the position that I was in. And that was
Nice.
great. I got to grow up as a young professional really quick and see a lot of places, and would work really hard and then try to get in some time if I was somewhere that I would take the time to go see the sites and just really enjoyed that experience. And then I ended up being hired on at Teal and Team, previously Teal and Teal, as a junior designer. And I said yes to everything. I traveled. I was probably pretty reckless and thinking I knew a whole lot more than I really did, but I was willing to jump in with 2 feet and figure it out. And, messed up along the way and was very
Mhm.
forthright about it and would tell my bosses, okay, I messed up, but this is how I'm fixing it. And from there, I just had the opportunity to start working directly with clients, which I love. I love my job, but I love people, I think almost even more. And just being able to connect and figure out what their pain points are, like what they need, what they see, the vision for their project, and then how we can, with our education and gifts, figure out how to make, that vision a reality. And over the course of time, went from a junior designer to, project managing, and was doing a little bit of everything, supporting architectural team with drawings and traveling a lot to sites and learning. I think that was the biggest learning experience, when I came on the TLN team. I think I did a pitch in front of my client on my second week. And if it wasn't my second week, I know it was in my first month, and was just nervous as all get out. But everyone is so kind. And, if they see that you're really listening, which I think that's something that's so important in our industry, is to listen,
Mhm.
and take what they're saying and really be able to hone in on that. That's really important, putting your own personal agenda and taste aside, because it doesn't always work.
Mm.
So anyway, over the course of time, the Teals, who own Teal and Teal, decided that they were ready to retire. And my partner and I, they approached us with essentially taking over the business for them, which was one of the greatest gifts I've ever received, aside from my children.
Well,
Um, and we worked hand in hand for a really long time. The transition was really organic. And over the course of time, Elissa and I have been able to grow the business the way that, we've wanted to, really making sure that we're taking care of our people, and in turn, taking care of our clients, and have been privileged and honored to work on so many amazing projects across the country. And we do a lot. Within our firm, we offer architectural services, interior design services, and also procurement. So a lot of our clients like that we're a turnkey solution.
mm.
It just makes things easier for them. And that our strengths really, a lot of times, if you're working with an architect, the strength might not be interiors. And we have assembled a team that we don't have a weak point. It's a team of amazing, talented, smart professionals that really stand out in the
Oh yeah.
industry. And that's something that we're able to, provide to our clients, which is spectacular. And honestly, is a dream come true. Sometimes I don't know how I got where I am, and I kind of have to pinch myself because I don't feel um, like I deserve it. But it's with a lot of heart and a lot of hard work that it's come to fruition. So we're
Well,
just very grateful.
congratulations, because I think you do deserve it. Because there's a few things that I wrote down that I find really interesting, and to explain even why I think you deserve it is the first thing you said is like back in your when you were a child, as far as I understood, that you were always interested about
Yeah.
designs, interior, even if you didn't know what an interior architect was. And
Yeah.
that really also reminds me of my sister, who happens to be also an interior architect, and she's been doing her job for a few years now. She's a bit younger than me, but since she was a child, we grew up together. She was constantly changing her sleeping room. Like we had our own rooms, we had a bed and some stuff in it, and
Yeah.
she was constantly changing it. Like we would walk by her room and you hear the sound like she's moving around all the furniture because she had come up with a new design, I guess. She probably also didn't know what interior design was. And that's what I love about your story. And I think for the listeners as well, you if you're like stuck in life where you don't know where you want to go with what you want to do, or you want to contribute to something to make a better world, it's really advisable to go back to your childhood and think about the things that really inspired you, because that's where all the nuggets are. That's where all the things you should be working on are. Because then when you follow your passion, just like you did, Paige, when there's difficult moments, which you clearly had, you'll push through because you're so passionate about it that you, in the heat of the moment, when there's a lot of problems, it's
Yeah.
like I've been through it. It's the worst, but you're so passionate about what you do that you never give up, and that's where you build grit, where you build success. That's how you get to where you are today. So rather than thinking of like what would be a job that makes me a lot of money, you have to find your passion and grow from that passion. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate that story. So congratulations to that. And then, yeah, you also touched upon a few other points that I want to dive in deeper, which is the hospitality industry. I think it's a very interesting industry that has also been struggling a lot through COVID, but I think it also we're now getting into that because of COVID, it became difficult. That now, when you do a new project in hospitality, it really has to stand out. It has to be something unique. There has to be a link with, in my case, then, or where I can add value. There has to be something unique about the environment, the outdoor spaces, the gardens, the nature around it. So I would love to hear from you, like with your clients, when you're working on hospitality jobs, how do you go about it? How do you find the best possible solution? Because at the same time, I also love what you said about like you take the time to sit down with your clients and listen to them, find out their pain points, and then be a one-stop shop to solve their problems, which is also amazing. So I'd love to hear more about the process you're going through in with your hospitality clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So, understanding your client's need is so important because they're the ones that see, day in and day out from an operational perspective, what works and what doesn't. And
Mm.
so the first thing that we are typically tasked with is a plan that doesn't function right, right? Like you have your back of house, you have service, you have your member or guest experience, and then you have everything else that has to happen like a well-oiled machine to make that member
Yeah.
experience spectacular. And so our company, nearly 30 years ago was started with a concentration in golf and country clubs. And that's something that we do a lot
Interesting.
of. So I'm going to use that as an example. And the club today is a lot different than it was tomorrow. But what isn't different is how it needs to operate and sight lines, making sure that if somebody's in a dining room or they're somewhere that's supposed to be a quiet space, they aren't constantly interrupted or distractions from what's going on behind the curtain to make the magic work. So that's typically the first thing we address with our clients, like operational flow, what's working and what doesn't. Programming of even, staffing needs. Is there a place for staff to retreat to? Do you have
Mhm.
enough offices for people to feel like they can do their jobs and do them well? So that's where we start, is the function. And then
Yeah.
beyond that, being able to engage different people depending on, their lifestyle, and because how people live today and how people work today is so different than how so many of these clubs were built,
Oh yeah.
you know, 50, 60 years ago. That can be, a pretty big task to take on. And being able to really hone in on that. So one thing that, or not one thing, several things that we typically are seeing within the program that we're trying to work in is health and wellness. So
Mm.
there's a component there where if there is a space for that, we're making it bigger, we're making it better. We might be taking over areas that aren't utilized as often, that maybe once were, when the club opened. But now, they really want to drive home this kind of health and wellness component within the club,
Yeah.
because they've become family destinations, not just, for the dad or mom just to go play golf, right?
Oh yeah.
So health and wellness is one. And then also looking at the food and beverage program and seeing where the opportunities are to expand, and to create vignettes and special places for, depending on the club and their goals. It might be a 21 and over bar, because when people are coming off the golf course, or somebody wants to have a date night, they probably don't want to bring families in to where that's commingling, right? Like having separate programmed areas for those types of use. And then making sure that we're really blurring the lines between indoor and outdoor spaces, whether that's a dining patio, which, if you're on a course or you're somewhere, there's typically beautiful views of the course, and figuring out how to blur the lines between indoor and outdoor programming so it seems really seamless. And depending on where we're at in the country, that can be a little bit easier, a little bit harder. In Texas, we have very small windows of time that people want to sit on a patio during the day
Before
because
it
it
gets
gets
too
so
hot.
hot. Yeah. But it's still a need. It might not be, the square footage that it would be in California or in Arizona. But it's certainly something that we consider along the way, and how we can bring those outdoor elements in. Another component that we really focus on now, which, hospitality leads the charge for all other types of design. So you go into the hottest, hippest boutique hotel in town, and that's what everybody wants to be, no matter what the development is, right? Because there's typically energy. This is kind of a cliche buzzword, but it communicates correctly the vibe, right? That you want people to feel when they come into a space. And so being able to have lounge spaces that, during the daytime, people could pull out their laptops and work, or if they need to take a call, there's a place to go take a call where you don't feel like you're disrupting anyone else that's there. And then those spaces transition in evening to great happy hour locations, or wine dinners, or, date nights, making sure that those spaces are programmed and thoughtfully designed along with the operator. I mean, that's something that's really important, because the operators really know their demographic and what the need is. So making sure that we're creating those spaces, whether it's light and bright and very engaging during the daytime, or maybe it's a little bit darker, and it's something that people are kind of a sexier environment that people want to hang out at night. So it's a fine line, and being able to marry those things together, it's a science, but it really is an art. And being able to coordinate with landscape teams and the other consultants is something that is absolutely integral to ensuring that we have a successful project and end result.
Well, I love that. So I think you pointed out a few very, very important parts here that I believe is instrumental to create projects that are future-proof, because our world is constantly changing.
Yeah.
So how, even with AI revolutions, even now robots, like there's so much question marks that we don't even know what the future will bring, that as a designer, as a landscape architect, as an architect, you're gonna have to like start thinking about that and make designs that allow a certain amount of multifunctionality. That's what I've written down, but not like in a classical way multifunctionality, because you could just make a big open room and then you can change some tables around. That's also multifunctional. You can have it as a dining room, you can have it as a conference room. No, that's like kind of boring. So going the extra mile is what you're doing, is like, okay, how can you create a beautiful space that is both usable and as a co-working space, as a lounge area, as also for different types of venues. And it really reminds me of the work that we're also focusing on is with our clients, is like, okay, how can we develop a project and also add as many different revenue income streams as possible? So, okay, the main goal with your project I'd love to take that as a case study to show it as well, is okay, we want to create a new golf course, new golf club, country and golf club, right? So
Hmm.
you could do it the old way and just build it and have that as one function, but you're already starting to think way wider. Okay, it's becoming a family destination. What can we add that also children would be interested of hanging out at that
Hmm.
place? Maybe there's a way that there's a childcare system. So like adding all those values so that people can pretty much spend the whole weekend and they don't have to drive around. So they have more quality time with their family. And then also blending the indoor with the outdoor, which adds to the multifunctionality and just the overall. I like that you say like a place has to create a vibe, right? Like you
Yeah.
come into certain places, you're like, wow, I feel really nice here. Like, how do you create that? So I think that's really great. And you already touched upon having, yeah, I'd love to dive deeper into the integration of the indoor and the outdoor space. Like, how do you usually do that in your day-to-day work?
Well, a lot of that is site specific, but I can tell you what we try to do. And it's great because so many club owners, whether it's a private club or not, the goal is there. It's kind of, the outdoor entertainment experience, right? So in a lot of cases, we are creating outdoor spaces where if there's a band that's set up or some sort of live entertainment on a Friday or Saturday night, there's opportunity for food service out there, and there's areas for kids to run and play. And it might not be, right there, but it's within, sight line. And there's typically, programming for that where, you might not be ordering from the dinner menu from the main dining room, but there might be a more casual type of, pick up, order a pizza, do it. The pizza ovens are fantastic for that.
Hmm.
And it becomes a really nice, almost kind of like a family camp environment, if that
I
makes
love that.
sense. And depending on, if there's opportunities and there's lakes or ponds, having docks, and then, being able to get really creative about how you're programming square footage, because those are also areas that they're just genuinely beautiful because they're maintained, they're landscaped. So, private events, if you have a wedding or a reception, you have all of those things that are working right there together, where you can step out from that, backside of your club, and you have a place that you can sit down around a fire table, and have wine with your friends. And I'm in the stage of life that I have smaller children, and the last thing they want to do is sit down with me for a nice dinner. They want to be spending that energy doing something. So when they can do that in an environment
Oh yeah.
that's not frowned upon and it's not inappropriate, it just allows connection between families, connections between communities, and it creates a very, very special member just environment for belonging and connection.
Hmm.
That is a precious thing, and it's one of those. That's why people buy in. These days it's why people buy in, because they want to be able to go somewhere on the weekends, and it might not be your kids, it might be your grandkids. Or it might be, okay, so I don't have the grandkids this weekend, but guess what? There's a place for me to go and have a quiet dinner, and making sure that all of those things can work together very carefully and or programmed well, so you're not sitting there having a nice dinner and somebody's walking by in their swimsuit because they're coming back from the pool. you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's something that we work a lot with our clients on, to make sure that what the adjacencies look like are really well thought out, and to engage every member of a family.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. That's really cool to understand how you're approaching that. And then if we obviously, like, I like this comparison that, okay, when we want to create a multifunctional space that suits different types of needs, we have health and wellness, food, indoor outdoor connection, like creating an entertainment experience, or general outdoor experiences.
Yeah.
When we need a multifunctional, like not just that where the architecture and the interior and the outdoor spaces are blended into one another, it also needs a multidisciplinary approach, in my opinion. So
Yes.
how do you go about this to create multifunctional spaces, to have a team of people with different expertise, and how do you apply that in your day-to-day work?
The earlier we can start working together and coordinating and collaborating, the better. A lot of times, well, I say it really kind of just depends on the project, but um, specifically since we've been using, clubs as an example, I'll keep going with that. So a lot of time the club has engaged a course architect to help them, and they kind of have established this master plan
Hmm.
with what that's going to look like, whether it's a short course or some sort of expansion or addition of a driving range. And so we're working together already to see, okay, this is the space that they have. What can we do to bridge the gap between the building and when their scope starts to make this experience better and more engaging? And so that's when we're thinking about what does that look like in terms of opportunities for the entertainment and for food and beverage? Do we need an outside bar? Do we need a different type of destination at the property to support anything that the course architect has done? And we do that a lot, through collaborative meetings and just kind of sitting down and sending schematics back and forth, and then and then we'll get their feedback. We'll provide our feedback. And then, of course, in the middle, you have the operator and the owner that's giving their feedback. And then when everybody's talking and they're really trying to engage everybody and respecting them for their discipline and their expertise, that's when the magic happens. I mean, that's when you get the best result and you end up with a project that everyone is proud of and they have a wait every time the doors are open, at least during peak times.
This podcast is brought to you by the Garden of Your Dreams Masterclass. Are you struggling with finding the right tools and tricks for your garden? Are you lacking the confidence to be a self-sufficient gardener? Do you sometimes get overwhelmed by the lack of knowledge and time you have to actually do gardening? Then the Garden of Your Dreams Masterclass is for you. Yeah, building the right team is really important, but that also comes and brings some challenges as well, because now you have to manage a whole team of people. So when you're working on these bigger scale projects, what do you see are the biggest challenges in creating a successful project
Oh
from
gosh.
your personal experience?
Honestly, the coordination for us isn't the challenge.
Nice.
For us, we're team players. We tend to align with teams that are team players. We all have the same end goal, right? For us, just based on the world that we live in and cost of labor and cost of materials, for us, usually the biggest challenge is budget and making sure that we are not over designing or showing our clients something that we know doesn't work with what their funds allow. And that's a delicate balance, right? As an architect, and it's our responsibility as a team to make sure that we're being as creative as possible and prioritizing. I think that's a really good thing and conversation that you have to have up front. It's like, okay, this is our wish list, right? Like these are all the things that we would love to have. But we know by doing some cost exercises and looking at this very preliminary that there's a good chance we might have to cut some scope or kind of manipulate some things. So what are our priorities here? And then starting there, right? Like this is most important for the client. It's going to yield the biggest return. It's going to have the biggest impact for the end user. And then from there, everything that you can do to embellish that is a nice, happy ad. And so often it's funny because I and my team, we're all guilty of it. We'll design something and we're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. And then, we start presenting and we're thinking about it. And we're like, okay, so VE comes. It happens. It should be a 4-letter word, but VE happens. And when it does, nobody knows except us, right? Like nobody knows what was sacrificed except for us, because when people come in, it still feels finished and it feels good and it feels thoughtful. And I think sometimes most people that are experiencing a space or an experience, like they might not be able to put their finger on like what about it made it great. But all of those small details wrapped together that support this overarching vision is what makes it great. It's and the small things that sometimes that we are sad to lose, no one misses but us. It's just one of those things. You have to make sure that you're maintaining what's really important and being able to sacrifice the things that really, it's a nice to have, but it's not a must have.
Yeah, I agree. It's always a bit of a delicate dance to
Yes.
meet with the client and prioritize things, and then some things that it's kind of hard to quantify, but you still say push that through because you know that it's gonna create that extra vibe, the
Yeah.
extra thing that will actually make the difference, that will then get clients to come back. Like how do you do that with your clients? How do you convince them, like, okay, I know this kind of doesn't seem to be like a priority, but you know that this is exactly the thing that will help them make a space so unique that people keep coming back and back and back? How do you justify that? Do you quantify it? Do you have systems around that?
We, what we present, and this is depending on the project and the scope, a lot of times what we recommend for our clients is something that we call a feasibility study.
Yeah.
And essentially, what that means for us is we are looking at the space, we're getting through programming, and we're casting the vision with conceptual imagery, and we are tiptoeing into block plans. And based on, the level of construction, we present a budget to them that shows this is our estimated construction cost based on, level of construction. Is it moderate? Is it heavy? Is it light? And then beyond that, we go even far enough to go ahead and give them FF&E estimates so we can look at it and really all make educated decisions about what the best path is forward. And
Hmm.
not everybody always has the same idea, what the best path forward is. In our business, we, we give our opinion, and we try to back up what the opinion is just based on our experience and what we've seen work really well. And, sometimes it's received, and sometimes, they know better what they need for their business. And it's our job to support our client. We have to voice our opinions and obviously bring the facts and data to the table to show them. But it's our job to do our jobs, and they're our client. So we listen to our client, because at the end of the day, we're not building monuments to ourselves. We're here to do a job for the people that need us.
I agree. And I think it's important for designers, architects, people like myself, also in the landscaping industry, to step up a bit and also be able to come up with financial models and feasibility studies and showing, like, okay, this is the budget that we have calculated and this
Hmm.
is the projected returns. We can also increase the budget, and that will have like a huge impact on the profitability of the project. So you can, instead of saying like, okay, this is what it's going to cost,
Yeah.
and not really knowing what the returns are going to be, why not have that skill as a designer to show, like, okay, this is, let's call it the minimal viable product. It has everything that you wanted, but if we add this and this and this, it's actually going to help you to create a way more profitable and more competitive business as in hospitality, which is, like, for me, it's like a non-negotiable that has to be focused on, because if you're building new projects in hospitality today, it has to really stand out. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, it's prone to not be successful, because there's already so many things out there, I think. Would you
Yeah.
agree with
Yeah.
that, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree. When we get to a point and we're working with the client, one thing that we offer, and depending on, where they're at and what they can spend at the time, we like to show them, white box renderings where we're in there and we're actually, we've designed it in 3D. As a designer and architect, we see these things very naturally, but a lot of people don't. And
No.
so seeing something two-dimensionally on a piece of paper doesn't always tell the story of what that environment has the potential to be. And so that's something that we recommend, as we're going through plans and we're developing our schematic studies. Those things are happening, like we're building the bones for that to happen. So just taking the next step. It's also great to use as a marketing tool. If you need any sort of buy-in from a board or a committee, or, some people can just raise their hand and say, what, I really don't get this. I don't see what you're trying to do. And it helps tell the story and kind of connect the dots. And usually when people see that, the excitement turns into, we're doing this, like we're moving forward full steam ahead. And we had actually recently a project that I'll use as an example. There was an entire clubhouse, and there were parts of it that were very beautiful. It was historic, and but most of it was really underutilized. It was, to your point, white walls, just kind of tables and chairs. That's vanilla, which it's flexible, but it doesn't call to anyone, right?
Yeah.
And so, of course, people weren't there using it. And so they're like, help us rethink what we can do to really get some member engagement here. So we looked at the entire footprint of the clubhouse, and we're really strategic about what they had that worked, right? And that was beautiful. And we needed to update, but we didn't need to completely rework. And then engaging programs, especially for a golf course, where simulators, for practice, especially if it's cold outside, if you live in an area that you can't, it's really hard to play golf in the wintertime, or if it's really hot. And those, the simulators can be connected to active environments, so they can be used, one, for practice, and two, also for entertainment venues. If you have, some really nice soft seating in there, and you have your simulators, and there's bar service, or you can host a party in there, and there's self-serve wine or anything like that. It's just another opportunity to serve the different people that are using the space, depending on what their goals are for that day. And that's something that we, again, talk to our clients about, see what they need, and then it's like a puzzle. You're just trying to get the pieces of the puzzle to fit together and to work within a footprint, and then make sure that they can afford it. And if they can't, it's phased. Okay, so this is going to be the next 2 years, and then beyond that, we're going to go here. That's an approach that we see a lot, because it's easier to kind of, what do they say, eat the elephant one bite at a time. These
Yeah.
massive undertakings just aren't feasible for most people, and most groups. And so we try to work with them to make sure that we're phasing it that's going to work best for them, that they're never completely out of operations, because we know they have to operate. Their doors have to remain open. And that's just kind of a fine dance and balance that we work with our general contractors and everyone that's involved in the project to make sure that it's a success.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. And I think it's really, as a planner, how can you help your client to find the lowest hanging fruits for their business? Like, with the minimal amount of change, how can they get the most amount of effect from that? And then once you've done that, you can keep adding certain other things that will add to it. So I think that's a really cool approach of how you're doing that in your work. So now, just out of curiosity for you personally, what are like the most exciting projects, and what do you love working on the most?
Oh gosh. Um, we've worked on so many projects. Oh, right now,
Or I would
really
say in the last
exciting.
5 years, it's always cool. Like, probably a couple before that, you also had done amazing things, but something more recent in the last 5 years would be cool.
Yeah, yeah. Right now, our one of our big projects that we're working on is the Baker Hotel. It is a historic hotel, opened in 1929, about 2 weeks after the great stock market crash. And it's beautiful. And we have the privilege to come in and work with that team. The doors, it was opened through the 30s, 40s, and 50s. The doors closed in the 70s. There have been multiple attempts since then to reopen and to restore. And you can imagine, over the course of time, damage and theft, kind of
Oh,
put the building in disrepair. But
is it in Dallas
it
as well, or?
it is in a town called Mineral Wells, and it's about an hour west of Fort Worth.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty well known. I mean, the following is incredible. Um, they have, built back in the 20s, they had an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And the Cloud Room is this beautiful event space that's just basically windows. And they had a spa. What drew people to Mineral Wells was the water. They called it the Crazy Water. And they still call it the Crazy Water. There's actually a Crazy Water Festival every year. Uh, they bottle it and you can buy it, but people went there for health benefits, thinking that the water would cure ailments. And gosh, Clark Gable visited, Judy Garland was there, Bonnie and Clyde they had a suite that they used as kind of a hideout. There's a lot of really unique history. And
Love
just walking through the building now, the GC has done a beautiful job of just getting everything cleaned up and demoed. So you can now see everything, and really have appreciation for all of the architectural and interior architectural detailing. Back then, different artisans came in and they did, their portion of that work. So it's all very unique. And so we're restoring that project. We've been working on it with ownership for a long time just to try to help with the vision and schematics and getting what they need in order to, raise the funds to make it happen. And now it's moving forward and we couldn't be more excited. So we're tasked there
it.
with restoring this beautiful building, and creating this new world-class spa experience and really programming the entire building to capture and engage a modern traveler, right? But ensure that we're respecting the DNA of the building and the history that's there. So that is an exciting project that we're working on right now.
And
For
did I
sure.
understand it correctly that in the process you helped your client first to come up with the concept, certain plans, to then for your client to be able to use that to get financing in the process. Is that correct?
Yeah, we created schematic plans, showing the different spaces, and there's a lot of it there that, I mean, we're working with what's there. People don't build buildings like that anymore. And so the Rose Room or the Brazos Room, the dining room, um, you have the series of columns and these beautiful arches and a stage area. So we're restoring it to its original beauty and working with historical palettes and making sure that the furnishings and everything that we're bringing in, it works with it and it supports what the building is, but obviously is made for what people expect today for a luxury hotel resort type experience.
Well,
Yeah.
nice. So there will also be a big focus on health and wellness, obviously, with the mineral waters, as that was the old reason why people were coming there, I think, to
Yeah.
find the eternal spring. And how you're still how what's your goal of how to integrate that old aspect of the mineral waters, maybe even the surrounding of it, back into in how are you going to integrate that in the project?
We want to be able to utilize the water, specifically in the spa, right? And obviously it's there for drinking. um, but we want to be able to utilize the water component as much as we can. And that's something that, you can you can buy it now in a grocery store, but we'll definitely make sure that we're in the gift shop and in wherever there's an opportunity to be able to experience that we're helping people to be able to experience it.
Well, that's so cool. Nice. So, what is your single best piece of advice for our listeners that are wanting to start their own business, maybe have already a business, they're struggling? What do you think is the best piece of advice when it comes down in going into the world and creating something that is beautiful, unique, something that you're clearly doing?
Um, I think you really captured it well earlier when you said, determination and grit is what it takes. Um, we've been around for a while, and my partner and we have an amazing leadership team, an amazing team of professionals that we lock arms and we do it together. Um, but when it comes to, the challenges and owning a business and making sure that it can be hard, it can be deflating. There are times that I think anybody that's done it has said, I want to give up. I don't want to go anymore. Um, what we've really learned is we don't we don't overanalyze or get stuck in our failures. We fail forward.
Hmm.
And what we mean when we say that is, we take our failures, we learn from them. You do like a post-mortem, figure out where you went wrong, And for me, but this is my personality. I tend to move a little too fast, and sometimes
Sounds
slowing
familiar.
down helps save me. And I have a team of people that help, like, hey, let's think this through, the next steps. We're good for each other because I help pull them along and they help kind of hold me back. And it's a nice balance. But, part of business and part of life is failing. And I think that's an expectation, and not letting failures define you, but use them as opportunities for growth, and for learning. So, the next time you'll do something a little bit different is the biggest piece of advice I can give. Like, you're gonna have hard days, and it's not always easy. But when you're on top of the mountain and things are going really, really well, take the time to stop and look back and enjoy the view and think about the wins that you've had along the way. And celebrate those, and be grateful for the times that you've been able to fail forward, because
And
that's
get
what really
Yeah,
defines
and
us
then
and
get
makes
ready
us.
for the next roller
Yeah,
coaster, I would say.
you're ready for it. Like, bring it.
I love it. Yeah, it's exactly what it is, right? Um, I I love what you said about failing forward. Like, what I always see in these moments where it's like the most toughest, and you think like this, like, how am I gonna solve all these issues?
Yeah.
Like, too much things to take care of, a few mistakes that have been made, and it's like,
Yeah.
wow. And then this is always the moment just before the next biggest success. Like, it's like at that very moment when you don't stop and you just keep going, keep going forward,
Yeah.
then you're just on the way to going up. And then I also love what you said, like when you're at the top, and take the time to enjoy it, to share your wins, to celebrate your wins with your team, with the people around you, and then get ready because the next roller coaster is gonna start very soon.
Yeah. If you're
Right?
gonna keep going, you got to go back down that mountain.
Exactly. There's always positive sides to everything. When you're down at the bottom, it's like it can only go upwards from here.
Yeah.
And when you're up on the top, which is great, you have a good feeling, but it can go wrong again. Or you're like, there's never a straight line, right? You
Yeah.
get to the peak, then you'll go down a little bit to then go to the next peak. It's really natural, and I think it's an important information or lesson to give away, is to really see like, okay, failure is something that you're learning, you're improving yourself.
Mhm.
Like, it's only failure if you would stop using the feedback that you get from the failure, then it's really failure. But if
Yeah.
you start using it to serve your clients better, to create better results, then you're on the right track, and then you'll be rewarded for that, I think. Yeah.
I agree with you. Life and business is not linear. If you want to feel the high highs, you're going to have to feel the low lows.
Yes. And isn't it that what makes it thrilling as well?
Absolutely. It is.
All right, Paige, anything else that you would like to add before we wrap up? I'll still ask you like how people can reach out to you. But is there anything else you would like to add before we finish our interview here?
Oh gosh, I don't think so. I appreciate you hosting me and having me on. This has been a lovely hour speaking with you. Thank you.
Yeah, nice. Time flies when we're having fun.
It sure
It's
does.
great. So, how can people best reach out to you? So, if there's people that maybe want to join your team, or that potential clients that say like, "Wow, I really love and would like to work with you," how is the best way to follow you and to reach out to you?
Yeah, so our website is a fantastic resource for connecting with us if you're looking for any sort of career opportunities, or if you're wanting to discuss a job. And, that is tealandteam.com. It's spelled differently than how it sounds. It's THIELANDTEAM. So that teal is the TH, teal. And then, of course, on LinkedIn, I'm there too, Paige Byrd, and you see my name with Teal and Team, that's me. But either of those ways are fantastic ways to get in touch with us. And of course, I'm partial, but I would say you won't work with a better group of people than the people at Teal and Team. One, and who they are, and two, their gifts and their talents. So contact us, reach out. We'd love to talk with you.
Well, I love that. I see how determined you are both for your team and for your clients, which is the most important thing. So I really congratulate you for doing all this amazing work. So we'll put all the information in the show notes as well. So Paige Byrd, thank you very much for coming on to the show.
Thank you, Matu. I really appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.